It was an ordinary evening during my time at a university in California. The sky had already darkened, and I was still in the library, engrossed in my books. With midterms approaching, I had to spend more time in the library, often staying until late at night. That evening, the library wasn't very crowded as most people had already left to rest. Around 11 o'clock, feeling a bit tired, I decided to take a break and go to the restroom. I put down my book, stretched a bit, and got up from my seat. The restroom was at the other end of the library, and I walked over. The hallway was silent, with only the sound of my footsteps echoing. The restroom was equally quiet. I splashed some cold water on my face, which helped wake me up a bit. Standing in front of the mirror, I stared at my tired reflection, thinking that I just needed to get through this period. Then I returned to my seat to continue studying. However, shortly after sitting down, I started to feel that something was off. My vision became blurry, and my head felt increasingly heavy. At first, I thought it was just fatigue from studying too long and tried to rub my eyes, but the situation didn't improve. A few minutes later, I found myself unable to concentrate, and my body felt unusually heavy. I tried to stand up, but my legs felt like they were filled with lead, completely unresponsive. Panic began to set in as I struggled to stay awake, but everything around me grew more and more indistinct. The last thing I remember was collapsing onto the desk, and then nothing but darkness. When I regained consciousness, it was already the next morning. I was lying on the library floor, surrounded by scattered books and notes. My head throbbed painfully, and my body felt extremely weak. I struggled to sit up and looked around, seeing that the library was now filled with unfamiliar faces. I tried to recall the events of the previous night, but everything seemed so hazy. Struggling to stand, I realized that my backpack and phone were missing. Just then, a library staff member approached and asked what had happened. I tried to explain, but my thoughts were still muddled, and I could only say that I might have been drugged. The staff member immediately called campus security, who arrived quickly. They took me to the campus health center, where a doctor examined me and confirmed that there were traces of a drug in my system. Hearing this, my heart sank. The feeling of being violated left me both furious and helpless. The next few days were filled with anxiety and fear. Campus security began investigating the incident, but because the library's surveillance cameras didn't cover the area where I was sitting, the investigation progressed slowly. I had to repeatedly recall the details of that night, trying to provide more clues. After several days of effort, campus security finally found a key piece of evidence. It turned out that a camera on the other side of the library had captured some blurry footage the night of the incident while I was in the restroom. A fellow student approached my desk and appeared to put something in my water bottle. I recognized the student as someone from one of my classes, though we weren't acquainted. With this lead, campus security quickly identified the suspect. Under questioning, the student admitted to his actions. He explained that it was meant to be a prank, claiming he had no malicious intent and just wanted to see my reaction. Hearing this explanation, I was overwhelmed with mixed emotions. The so-called prank had almost cost me my life. The school took the matter seriously, expelling the student and handing him over to the police. Although I found some solace in this, the incident's impact on me was far from over. During that time, I often had nightmares and frequently experienced sudden bouts of fear and anxiety. Whenever I studied in the library, I couldn't help but constantly look around, fearing a repeat of that night. I remember one time I tried to return to the same seat to study, but as soon as I sat down, my heart started racing and my breathing became rapid. I had to get up and leave. The sense of being violated lingered, making me hyper-aware of my surroundings. That autumn, I stepped into this historic university campus, beginning the college life I had always dreamed of. The dormitory was an ancient building, said to be nearly a century old, with time-worn marks on its red brick walls, adding an air of mystery and solemnity. I lived in a double room on the 4th floor. Though small, it was cozy enough. However, this tranquility was soon shattered by a series of strange events. It all started on a stormy night. The wind and rain outside formed a discordant symphony, making it hard to sleep. Just as I was drifting in and out of consciousness, I heard a rhythmic, faint tapping on the wall, piercing the night's silence like tiny needles. At first, I thought it was branches being blown by the wind against the wall, but the tapping was too regular, almost as if conveying a message. I listened closely. Thump, 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 every 3 seconds, steady and unnerving. The next day, I told my roommate about it. He laughed and joked that maybe I had sleepwalked and done it myself. We didn't take it seriously, thinking it was just a coincidence caused by the wind. However, over the following nights, the tapping resumed, always at midnight, without fail. This time, my roommate heard it too. We exchanged uneasy glances, filled with confusion and anxiety. We decided to get to the bottom of it. One weekend night, we turned off the lights early and waited for the mysterious tapping to start. Just after midnight, the familiar and eerie thump sounded right on schedule, clear and distinct. We exchanged looks and decided to take action. I quietly got up, tiptoed to the wall, and pressed my ear against it, trying to determine the source. The tapping seemed to come from the adjacent room, an unoccupied dorm since not enough students were assigned that semester. The next day, my roommate and I approached the dorm manager, explaining the strange occurrences of the past few nights. The manager, a middle-aged man, looked incredulous at first but then slightly uncomfortable. He told us that the room used to be occupied by a brilliant but reclusive student who, under immense pressure, had taken his own life. His tragic departure left a shadow over the dorm, and the room had remained unassuaged since. The manager promised to investigate, and we returned to our room with mixed feelings. That night, we deliberately stayed up, chatting to dispel the unease. However, at midnight, the tapping resumed, this time more urgent, as if conveying something pressing. The following day, the manager and a few staff members opened the empty room. Inside, it was covered in dust, with sunlight streaming through the window, highlighting the empty bed and desk. They inspected every corner, but found nothing. The manager decided to install a surveillance camera in the room to capture any unusual activity. That night, we didn't hear the tapping, but our anxiety persisted. The next day, we eagerly reviewed the surveillance footage, and the result was shocking. The room remained empty throughout the night, with nothing moving except the occasional fluttering of the curtains. However, when we slowed down the footage and scrutinized it, we noticed at one moment, a vague human silhouette appeared briefly on the wall behind the curtains. This discovery left us both terrified and puzzled, unable to explain it. Over time, the tapping gradually ceased, and the dormitory returned to its usual calm. We never brought up the incident again, but it lingered in our minds as an unresolved mystery. Whenever the night grew deep and silent, a faint thump seemed to echo in our ears, reminding us that in this ancient campus, some stories might never truly end. It was a seemingly ordinary spring semester, with cherry blossoms in full bloom across campus, and the air filled with a faint floral scent, giving everything a vibrant and lively feel. As a freshman, I was filled with curiosity and anticipation for the future, eagerly exploring every corner of college life. However, an unexpected encounter added an unusual twist to my university experience and taught me the importance of being aware of my surroundings. It happened on a Thursday evening. The setting sun had turned the sky a golden red hue as I finished a group discussion and walked back to my dorm alone. Lost in thought about the discussion, I decided to take a shortcut through a quiet grove instead of the usual main path. The young green leaves gently swayed in the breeze, adding to the tranquility, as I enjoyed the rare serenity. Sudden rapid footsteps approached from behind, and soon, a figure drew up alongside me. Instinctively, I turned to see a young man who seemed anxious and eager. "Excuse me, can you help me?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. I stopped, a bit wary but still polite. "Sure, what do you need?" He explained that his car had broken down nearby and his phone was dead. He hoped to borrow my phone to call a friend for help. I hesitated. Helping others is a virtue, but countless campus safety lectures and warnings flashed through my mind, urging me to be cautious. I pretended to search my bag and replied, "I'm sorry, but I left my phone in my dorm to charge." It was a lie, made up on the spot, but I hoped it would help me avoid the situation. His reaction, however, was unexpected. He grew agitated, his tone turning harsh. "You're lying. How could you not have your phone on you?" Feeling threatened, my heart pounded, but I tried to stay calm. "I'm really sorry, but I don't have it. There's a security office up ahead. We can go there and ask for help." At that moment, I noticed a group of students walking in our direction, likely heading back from the library. I felt a surge of relief and decided to use this chance. Pointing ahead, I raised my voice. "Look, there are some students. We can ask them if they have a phone." The man's face changed, clearly not wanting more people involved. He cursed under his breath, then abruptly turned and disappeared into the shadows of the grove. I stood frozen, making sure he was really gone before quickening my pace towards the group of students, joining them as we walked to a busier area. Back at my dorm, I immediately reported the incident to campus security, describing the man's appearance and what had happened. The school took it seriously,